We are live here. Thank you for joining us today. We have a very special treat for you. We're talking with Representative Mike Sylvia of the New Hampshire Assembly. I'm sure we'll get some of the particulars here in just a second. Mike has recently proposed that a bill or a law, we'll get into the details here, that New Hampshire could secede from America. This has been getting a lot of attention. Mike worked with one of the groups called Liberty Block. Liberty Block has been working with Yes California for years. And we also filed an initiative and referendum here in California for secession. And we're proud to see another state use the proper legal channels to actually file amendments or referendums for secession, showing that this is a reasonable topic and you can actually get it through. But before we get into it, real quick, well, in 2012, I believe there was a foundation for New Hampshire independence. In 2014, Dave Ridley proposed New Hampshire exit. The goal of New Hampshire exit in 2014 was to simply get one person in the assembly or the government there in New Hampshire to propose a simple resolution for secession. Now, fast forward to 2021. We're speaking with Representative Sylvia, and he literally did just that. Mike, what was the resolution you proposed or the referendum, and what exactly did it say?
Sure. So here in New Hampshire, we can propose bills as legislators. We had a 1-week filing period back in September, middle of September, fairly narrow window. And I put forward a constitutional amendment, and it's really rather brief, so I'll go ahead and read it. It will fit in after Article 7 of our first part of our Constitution, which is our Bill of Rights. New Hampshire made the Bill of Rights first before establishing the government, so that we are very clear that all of the rights in the first part of our Constitution are those reserved to the people. So we're going to propose Article 7A, Independent Nation. And it says, New Hampshire peaceably declares independence from the United States and immediately proceeds as a sovereign nation. All other references to the United States in this Constitution, state statutes, and regulations are nullified. It's that short and simple.
Have you had any contact with the Foundation for New Hampshire Independence or New Hampshire Exit, or is this just you and the group Liberty Block?
Sure. So this is a small state, and this is the home of the Free State Project. So a lot of the Free State Project movers are connected with this organization, various organizations within the state. We're all it's a small state. We know each other, so we're all very well connected. Like I'm sure California, you would have to find a town fairly small to be kind of connected with all the people that we connect with. As a matter of fact, our legislature has 400 members. I think we are 1.3 million people in New Hampshire. So each representative district represents about 3,300 people. So that's just a little bit bigger than a small town, I suppose. And we know our constituents. Our constituents know us, and we're all pretty close.
That was one of the things that we talked yesterday. So we talked for a little bit, and I had asked you briefly, and if you could tell me your answer again, why New Hampshire? Why did you propose this? Now, the topic of national divorce is widely being spoken about. Sarah Silverman, the comedian, a few weeks ago proposed the idea. Multiple conservatives around America picked up on it. If you type in national divorce, you can see it trending. That comes in between two polls. One before the topic was trending, saying that 42% of people in the West Coast would be open to secession, 66% in the South. Then we had Sarah Silverman and conservatives get into it talking about national divorce. And then we had a second poll saying that the support for secession is up to 52% of all Trump voters and 41% of the opposition side. So why if so many people are talking about national divorce and there's so much interest, according to 2 different polls in the last 3 months showing interest in this topic, at least given in comparison to the last few years, why is it that you and New Hampshire were the only ones to actually propose this and walk it through the actual system to implementation?
Sure. So this has been an idea that's been floated. As you say, Dave Ridley was kind of one of the prime movers in the state. He was an early mover for the Free State Project. He was here back in the early aughts. So he's been around a long time, has done a lot of things. I moved to New Hampshire myself in 2010. So I'm here 11 years. Just for the background, I'll give you. I wasn't planning on running for office. I wasn't quite sure what my activism would be or how I would be connected with my move here with the Free State Project. And I live in a town that's very Republican. And during the filing period to run for office, there were no Republicans running in the town that I had moved to in 2012. I had just moved in, I believe it was April of 2012. And the filing period is June, and filing period came and went. People were looking for candidates to run in Belmont. There was no one stepping up. There's a period after the filing period, which the party can put someone in. There was still no one. So in order to get on the ballot, they went beating the bushes, found me and another guy, Chuck Fink, who was my chiropractor up until he passed away a couple of years ago. We ran on an open primary ballot, which obviously is very easy to succeed. There was one other person who tried to get elected, but we stepped up. We won the primary, and of course, being a Republican town, it was just a very easy win to become legislator. So that was the beginning for me. And of course, I wasn't particularly interested in being a politician, but I certainly have principles, liberty principles. I was a libertarian previously when I was in New York. So I came and was interested in doing what I could on any liberty front. I was never really a fan of secession. It didn't seem like a prudent thing to do.
I remember that.
And
you said that, yeah.
So it's been a long time, and I think things are changing. We could use the straw that broke the camel's back, which turns out to be a bale of straw this year, between COVID and Biden and all of the crazy stuff that's going on now. Or you could use the boiling frog analogy and consider some nuclear device dropped into the water instead. It really, all of the circumstances that are around us have really pushed the issue to the forefront. And this is why it's happening not only here, but everywhere. How does this happen in New Hampshire that we actually get this? We have a very open process in New Hampshire, and a legislator can file a bill. So when the various groups came around asking if I would sponsor the bill, I said, well, yeah, okay, I guess it's time. So they had proposed this. We had some little workshopping sessions talking about what the bill would look like, how we would do it. That's all, out there in public. We're very transparent. We recorded those things, and they're online. You get frank discussions and truth from me. It's on my I keep my recordings on Odyssey.
Right.
Right. ODYSEE.com.
That's the crypto-backed site where the videos can never be removed.
The alternative to those who will take things down. Yeah.
Right.
So those are on there. I've linked up to them. Actually, I think Dave Ridley and Ian Freeman were involved in recording those. So those are available to see how we, approached thinking about this. And go ahead.
Why now? If I could, for the viewers watching in, there's a lot of material, there's a lot of background. I know I read some of the material that you had released as to why you were proposing this, but in your words, one of the things that grabbed me when we talked earlier was that you were not initially for secession at all, and you've come to it. How did you make that journey? What was the evolution? How did you go from that's a crazy idea to actually proposing this recently? Why now? Why now?
Well, it's, as I said, it's been a long time coming. You go back to Shays Rebellion, you go look at our gun rights, our constitutional amendment, our rights have been violated, although it says shall not be infringed. There's all kinds of infringements on our rights to keep and bear arms. Obviously, much less in New Hampshire, so it's a little easier to live with. We actually even got constitutional carry finally a few years back. So we have very, very open gun law. So the things that are coming about now, we've got, it looks to be not only within the United States, but around the world, totalitarian governments just stepping right in. We saw with the pandemic, the opportunity was taken to do all kinds of crazy authoritarian nonsense. This is a pretty good motivator. When you have tyrants everywhere, I think the time has come. We've got all of these mandates coming down from the federal government, DC. They have the CDC telling us we have to get injections, using OSHA rules to force those injections on employers and employees. You've got the CDC saying that you can't evict people who are not paying rent. Those are property rights violations. The violations stack up all over the place. You've got the recent talk from the Biden administration and the Democrats talking about packing the Supreme Court, adding states, doing almost a national vote, like a national popular vote. They're going to try and take out anyone that wants to get in their way. They want one giant democratic rule, and I believe in I believed in the Republican system, Republican form of government, that is. And this is we're really way too close to the edge, if not already over the edge, and it's time.
Frog in the pot of water. As it continues to get hot, the water is starting to boil. It begins to boil, but it's too late for the frog to get out. You're saying that the excesses and the extreme behavior by the federal government taking over states' rights has been a long time coming. You've been seeing it, but recently it just got too far. There was a line, perhaps in the sand, that they crossed and happened to be coming underneath the mandates for COVID-19. Is that a fair summary?
Absolutely. It's been coming. There's been plenty of warning, and it's been accepted slowly. And all of a sudden we've got it coming from all kinds of angles, and they seem to have no restraint in their ideas of how far they're going to push it.
So the other question is, and I think you got at this, was why New Hampshire? So national divorce is trending. Sarah Silverman's talking about it. It's all over the place. There's two polls, one before the topic started trending and one afterwards. And I made a video on that recently showing support for secession is going up. There's 50 states in the union. All we've heard about is Texas walking this through some sort of legal mechanism with their government. And all we've heard about is New Hampshire is the only one where they have a politician who actually proposed it. You're a sitting official, you're actually in the government, and you proposed this and got it in, I think, through the Legislative Analyst Service Office. And I think you're still waiting for a 60 to 70% vote to have it passed next year. But the fact is that you got it in the system. I think what you were saying was the reason is that you're a real person, and that in New Hampshire you have a famously low amount of people per representative, something like 400,000 per one person, whereas in California we're approaching like 1 to 2 million per person. In America, very few places have that level of representation, where a small number of people are represented by a human in the legislature. And I think what you're saying is that perhaps in the other states, it's too hard to get into office. You have to have so much money, so many allies to get in, and maybe they're able to filter out ideas. Whereas you're a real person, you ran for this. This is what the public's talking about it, and because the representation level is so egalitarian and fair, real people are actually able to get into office in New Hampshire, whereas real people in other larger states may not be able to. And so the idea that you're proposing is one that the public wants, and maybe there's the public in other states that want that, but they can't seem to get through the barrier of how many people and moats and money and system. And you have kind of a really great access to democracy at the local level there. Is that correct? Is that a fair abbreviation of what we've been talking about, sir?
Yeah, except I think you said some 44,000 per representative. No, it's 3,300 citizens for each representative. That is, a semi-large town for each representative. So it's tremendously, very much its citizens. And, we get paid $200 for our 2-year term. So it's not like we're in it for the money. That unfortunately skews things a little bit towards the gray side in our legislature. But we do have some young folks sometimes when they're still in school or going to college. So it can work out okay that way. There was another part there and I got sidetracked.
Well, it's just if you're proposing this legislation, and I think it's good and it's simple, other people could follow it. But I think what we're talking about is that, do those states have systems where regular people can get into the system in the power structure so that they can propose something like this? And
right. So, yeah, the other part of that is that because 400 citizen legislators are hard to come up with. There are some districts that just, have to go out and drag someone off the street and say, hey, you're going to be state representative this time. Okay. It's an interesting system. So one of the things with so many of us wildcat types in the legislature is we aren't necessarily beholden to the establishment to keep us towing the line, so to speak. In a lot of other states where it does take significant amounts of money to run for office, you are probably dependent upon the system, the party, to get you elected. Here, my first term, I don't even think I spent like $300 on signs. So that's all self-funded for the most part. Some people raise money in bigger districts. Depends on where you're at and how much competition there is. But because I'm not beholden to a party, then the establishment, they sometimes don't like what I do. But I do what is principled, and certainly the citizens in Belmont know exactly what they're getting with me. There's no doubt about it. The headlines are out there. You can Google me up and see all my infamous glory. I'm pretty straightforward with things. So with that being said, our system also allows that bills that are submitted are not subject to being stuffed away under a couch seat somewhere. Everything that gets submitted, as long as the sponsor continues forward with it, will get a hearing in the House. And that is the major thing, the major difference. They can kick and scream about it all they want. They can try to do things, but there's not a whole lot of way that they can stop at least one hearing for the bill. And after that hearing, there will be a vote in committee, and there will be a vote on the floor of the House. And those are unavoidable. There's maneuvers that they can do to try to disrupt things, no doubt about it. This is politics, and it can be hardball out there. But the people will get at least the hearing on it. And from the feedback that I've gotten so far, I expect that we will have a very large group come out for the hearing. In our normal process, our legislative office building, they have rooms, and they've got double rooms. I think a double room might accommodate maybe up to, let's say, 100 people. If they go beyond that, then we have a process where everything goes over to Representatives Hall, which has 400 seats in it. So if this is as popular as it seems right now, we might have to hold our hearing in Representatives Hall, and people will stream in and out for possibly a day-long hearing on this bill.
Wow. So you have the ability for regular people to run for office. They don't have to get a lot of cash to be able to do it. They really only need to impress maybe 3,000 people or a small town, and then they can be known. Money's not really an object there. You can get in, and when you do propose something, they actually have to debate it and go over it, and the public actually has to be allowed to watch. Am I getting that correct with the summary?
You've got it. Absolutely.
Wow.
Last year, of course, with COVID was a little bit crazy, where they did everything by Zoom, and it was a mess, and it's a horrible, horrible process. A lot of people like the remote access through Zoom for hearings, but it does not really satisfy a real back and forth discussion. If you've seen any kind of I'm sure everybody by now has been involved with these Zooms with more than a dozen people. We've got 20 people on each committee. There's just no way you can have a real contemporaneous discussion.
Right. And if I'm not mistaken, the referendum that you have proposed, it's got to get about 60 to 70% of the House or the Senate to get through, but you do not have to get Governor Sununu's approval in order for this to become law. Is that correct?
That's correct. So this is what we call a constitutional amendment and concurrent resolution, which means it is passed by the House and by the Senate. I believe it's by 3/5 in each body, and then it goes directly on the ballot for the citizens to vote on. And I believe that is a 2/3 vote required for that. I should nail down those numbers, but it's a large portion.
Yeah. Yeah, I just found the similarities to be very interesting because we propose ballot referendums here in California. As a citizen, you can propose it directly. You don't have to be a politician, but you still have to get the voters to approve it. But the great thing is that once it's approved, it just becomes law. The governor doesn't have to approve it. And when I saw that with your process, I thought that was very interesting. That these seem to be the last hold-ons to real democracy, where you're letting the public, however they will, actually make the decision. And then I find that very exciting, especially given these days where bills are always destroyed before they actually get to be voted on. People can't get into office if you don't have $2 to $3 million. Good people trying to do small fundraisers can't get enough money to compete, and they can never get media coverage. It's nice to see there's these holdovers that allow real democracy to happen. And I find it interesting that I think the New Hampshire law that allow you to do this is at least 200 years old, maybe 100 years old. And here in California, our law that allows us to do this it goes back to 1905. So we're looking at these vestiges of democracy that we're able to hold on to and use to promote these ideas that people actually want, regardless of what the power system says. And it's only because they were grandfathered in a century ago.
Right. We don't actually have a referendum process here in New Hampshire, so the only way to get something directly, a question before the citizens, is to put it out as a constitutional amendment, which then, if it passes, it will be on the ballot. And this, of course, goes back. The New Hampshire Constitution was put in place back in 1784, 3 years before. 3 years before the federal Constitution. So we started it out, and we have sovereignty built into our Constitution. It's in fact, we've got the right of revolution is one of our first Bill of Rights, Part First, Article 10, and we retain those rights. We never gave them to the federal government. And the process that I'm taking here is fully within the Constitution, even if some of the leftists would like to say that I shouldn't even be able to hold office for proposing it.
Let's talk about that. So the moment you proposed this, there were two things that I saw. One was that there was another legislator, I think it's the Speaker of the House there in New Hampshire, proposed a bill saying that if you propose anything like secession or leaving the Union, you can be removed or from holding office. something like that.
Yeah, that was not the Speaker of the House. He's not that mean of a guy,
Okay.
although he
Okay.
had some words. So I'm just going to look up. I've got a friend of mine sent me the text of this bill that one of the folks that just changed from a Republican to a Democrat over vaccine issues. He filed a bill, and it's fairly short. It has to do with qualification for office,
Right.
and it adds this section is determined by the general court to have engaged in insurrection or rebellion or given aid or comfort to the enemies of the state in violation of the RSA, revised statutes annotated. This shall be determined by the House of Representatives in the case of a member of the House of Representatives, and by the Senate in the case of a member of the Senate. And then they go on to define insurrection. As provided in Article 14, Section 3 of the Federal Constitution, a person who engages in insurrection or rebellion against the United States, or who gave aid or comfort to the enemies thereof, shall be ineligible to hold elective office in the state, unless Congress, by a vote of 2/3 of each house, shall remove such disability. For the purpose of this subparagraph, insurrection or rebellion shall include any action intended to separate New Hampshire from the United States, and aid or comfort shall include any action facilitating such intent. So this was clearly written to counter my constitutional amendment, which is kind of crazy. So that won't go anywhere. It violates our Constitution. The New Hampshire Constitution absolutely allows this amendment of mine. It's kind of ridiculous that he would even propose this, but some of us know the Constitution better than others.
And so this was, I mean, just off the top, yeah, so many things there to unpack. You're proposing your law for the union for New Hampshire to be able to break off. At the same time as you're proposing this, another legislator proposes another bill that says, hey, anybody who proposes anything like secession can be kicked out of office. And I think you said you didn't necessarily see that as having a good chance of winning, but it has what's known as a chill, right? It's a form of intimidation. It's a shot across the bow. It's a cannon blast to the front lines, as they used to do, to let you know, hey, watch out, we'll take you out if you go through with this. Am I getting this wrong? Is that not a fair summary?
No, you're absolutely right. And, it's not the first time I've run into flack, and this is what happens when you see targets. You draw the flack.
So you propose an idea as an elected official who wins an election democratically, uses the system enshrined in the Constitution to propose a law, walks us through, actually has the word peaceable or peace in it, uses the whole system all the way through, and the best thing they can think to do is say, well, even if you get all your ducks in a row, and even if you jump through all the hoops, if you say this one thing and you do totally legally correct, you're still a bad guy and have to be removed. Is that way off basis?
No, you've got it exactly right. And there are other parts in our Constitution that protect the speech of legislators in their job function. It is just so far out there. It's absolutely absurd that he proposed it. I can only expect that someone will knock a little sense into him, and he will toe the line and withdraw that silliness. It will just be embarrassing for him.
But it hasn't been criticized so far. So this
I don't think anyone knows about it right now. So far, when we file these LSR, legislative service requests, is what happens before you get a bill. Only the title is printed. So I happen to get that language from a friend who must have gotten it from him. But they aren't published until the sponsor signs off on it and a bill number is assigned. So that may not even exist by the time bills actually get distributed to committees.
The other thing that we saw recently was, I believe it is the Speaker of the House there, is, if I'm mistaken, please correct me, but someone high-ranking, Chambers, I'm drawing a blank on the name, is going around saying that you are a racist and that this idea is racist, and that no one in the GOP is thinking about this at all. So they're saying two things. He's crazy. No one's talking about this at all. I was on the phone call with you in Liberty Block where you were talking about getting even more legislators to back this. So I
Yep.
think you're looking at 8 or 9 already. You're pushing 10 is the maximum limit. Is that wrong?
Right. We can have 10 representatives on a bill as co-sponsor or sponsoring co-sponsors. We could have 10 names listed. And I believe I can add 5 senators if they so choose. We currently, I think, are at 8. So we have a couple of slots open, and senators are a little trickier to get hold of. They're a little more tied into the establishment.
But in the building that you're in the part of the government, you're close to reaching the maximum number of people that you can have on that bill supporting it. And yet you have the Speaker of that same House saying that nobody in the GOP is interested in this idea. Who's not being honest?
So what you're referring to is one of our earlier sessions where we recorded, because we do things transparently. We recorded a session discussing filing a bill or constitutional amendment in this case. And as you know, those who work the politics full time in this state, the Democrat leader of the party leadership, Ray Buckley, his crew tuned into that, found some juicy little tidbit where I was discussing and speaking just like he would if he were being honest out in the public. There are things that people are motivated by. And one of those issues that I set up, and I did not make a statement of my own, but there are people out there with racist ideas that would talk about folks crossing the border who ought not be crossing the border in their minds. These are not my ideas, once again, because they're going to take things out of context. And speaking about that, there are a lot of motivated people, particularly in the conservative side of things, whether it's immigration issues, whether it's gun rights, whether it's voting, election integrity. There's a lot of issues that are being discarded, disregarded, and they're motivated. That's why I expect that our hearing for this constitutional amendment is going to be packed. And they'll look for any little thing that they can find to try and do damage to me. Make if you can't attack the idea, attack the person who's putting it forward.
And that's why I wanted to ask you, because I saw that. I'm Latino. We've talked, so I was just going to ask you straight up. And by the way, we were called Russian spies. I've personally been accused of being a white supremacist. I'm Mexican, so it really doesn't matter.
Larry Elder's a white supremacist too.
Yeah, well, he said some pretty racist stuff.
Yeah, well,
I don't want to get into it, but
right.
He said slavery, whatever, and minorities just complain. You don't talk like that out here in California. So I'll leave it there. That's not what we're here about. What I wanted to talk to you about was slander. Now, I was going to give you the benefit of the doubt because I'm still called a Russian spy, right? House Resolution Intelligence Committee, Mueller report, and another investigation cleared of assault wrongdoing. No reporters will actually cover that anymore, even though it's been out for a year and a half. So welcome to the land of the free press and home of educated voters. He said that you're employing racial stereotypes for any purpose is wrong, shameful, and never get Republican support. And he also said secession is not something the Republican leadership is remotely involved with. But I got to say, when I'm talking to you, you don't strike me as a racist. And when we're talking about how you got 8 people that are maybe going to be doing this and you're signing on to this and you're approaching the maximum, it doesn't sound like no one's interested in this. So I got to say, I'm hearing you and I'm hearing this guy, and it looks like this, like my dad used to say, one of these don't match. So how come he's saying nobody in the GOP is interested at all? We don't care about this, and you're approaching your maximum number of supporters. And how come he's saying you must hate all Latinos, and yet you're doing an interview with one? Kind of confusing. What's going on?
This is the way that they don't want to rock the boat. They want to have everything very vanilla. Cruise on through, don't make any waves. There's always the political calculation that, and unfortunately it happens mostly with Republicans that are just try to work the middle of the road. Don't be too out there on the liberty edge or the conservative edge. And, as if they're going to get Democrat votes. It doesn't work like that. As far as I'm concerned, when Republicans go out and say they're middle of the road, it does not encourage Republicans to get out and vote. And I don't see why on earth you would want to alienate your people. I mean, this is essentially what Trump, the message he got through is, if you're going to say and be conservative, well, do it. I'm not saying he's the greatest thing ever. A lot of great stuff came from him, particularly when he's pushing against the establishment, and I think that's helpful because I think the establishment on both sides try to work that 50-50 and divide the people up as many ways as they possibly can, find the issues that come down 50-50 and divide and conquer and keep us controlled. That's the establishment routine.
That's what they did here. So we were getting very far, and then it's all, you're Russian spies. This is a secret Russian plot. Don't hang out with those people. And, then nobody would hang out with us because they thought, I had a direct pipeline to Vladimir Putin, et cetera, none of which was proven true. They even subpoenaed our bank accounts and found nothing at all. And they found nothing and nothing and nothing, multiple investigations, but none of the reporters, I emailed 45 of them and said, would you at least print an update? Keep the story up, keep the misleading headline, keep your slander up. Just at the bottom of that newspaper, for anybody who gives the expletive, feces, whatever, sorry, it gets a little personal, just put a little update. By the way, all the stuff that we predicted was going to come to pass was completely disproven. Here's this report that disproves it. Here's another report that disproves it. Here's a third report that disproves it. There's literally no evidence over 3 years and multiple investigations involving state government and multiple levels of federal government and the intelligence services to prove any of this that we just said above. Keep it all up. 45 reporters, not one response. So that's America. Yeah. Now, and just to back you up, the White House has literally said they're going to have released 200,000 Mexicans, undocumented immigrants, without requiring COVID tests. So this is not a theory. This is not Trump talking. I'm Latino. I love immigration. I even love undocumented immigrants here in California, but that's here in California. And when a man in another state in America says, look, the federal government is allowing undocumented people in illegally who may be infected, are coming from a hotspot, and are not required to get their COVID test, that's true. That was confirmed by Jen Psaki 2 weeks ago. 200,000 people from a hotspot allowed in. The White House is not going to test them for COVID at all. So what you're talking about is a reality, and the federal government is allowing it. And if you are concerned about coronavirus and your people dying en masse, I could see how that would be a concern. And it is a legitimate concern. Let me back you up a little bit more, just for all the haters out there. If I moved to New Hampshire and I said I love New Hampshire, would you accept me, a Latino, as a fellow New Hampshire person?
Yeah, absolutely. I have a friend in state who is from the islands. He immigrated legally, was in New York City for quite a while, and came up here and found it's a great place to be.
Wow.
We don't have a lot of diversity here, no doubt about that, but absolutely welcome. And
Sure.
When you stand out like that and you're a decent person, you're welcomed. I mean, who doesn't love a unicorn? I mean,
yeah,
come on down.
Yeah. And this is what I told you guys about Scotland. Scotland is very Scottish. And when they did the Scottish independence movement, the English came with, oh, you guys are racist. Well, the way the Scots did that was they kept having Muslims who are Scottish citizens and have the accent do all their commercials for them. So what they were saying is like, yeah, Scotland's 98% Scottish, but if you're an immigrant and you come here and you eat what we eat, talk like we talk, you're a Scot. End of story. And that really helped crush these negative talking points, because I can already see they're working on you, right? So this is illegal. No one's interested in it. That's a lie. The media isn't going to tell you. That's why we interviewed him. So they're going around talking about the head of the New Hampshire Gov saying no one's interested in that. You're hearing from the source saying, yes, there is interest in that. They're also saying these guys are white supremacists and racist. You're hearing that's not true directly from the source. And, it's just like they told us here, we're all Russian spies and this is illegal that we're doing. It's built into the California Constitution and all those accusations have been disproven. So I'm with you, brother. I get it. I see that the slander is the same across an entire continent of distance. Why do they keep doing the same thing to us Americans who just want to pursue our constitutional right to express ideas? And this is the biggest thing. I'm sorry. I'll give it right back to you, but I'm sorry. I'm really bothered they're doing this to you because they did the same thing to us. You're a decent man. You've worked through the system. You got elected. You followed democracy. You played by the rules, and then they're going to punish you and spank you and trash your name. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, we are, of course, being a member or a mover with the Free State Project, as most of the folks here are. We're on a terrorism watch list, of course, because we are. The original creators of this country were insurrectionists and rebellers.
Yeah.
So we actually have Russians here. We've got a few Russians here.
Great.
They loved leaving that kind of system, and they know exactly what can happen here. We have fantastic. I don't know if you know Lily Tang Williams. She's been a great advocate from China, originally from China, and she has just been pounding the drum against this tyranny. And she's goes around and gives people the real word of what happens in China and how she grew up. She's been a great liberty activist. Is she a Chinese spy? I don't think so. We have lots of folks here that have come from other countries, and they know what the real problems really look like.
Yeah. Okay, so we've talked about nuts and bolts of this. What do you? Why aren't more states doing this? Do you think more states will follow your lead? Is that an acceptable future for you?
Yeah, I think it's highly acceptable for all of the countries. They are countries. All of the states to consider it. We are in a good position where we are near Canada. We have a ocean access. I've heard of, on a recent podcast, talk about West Virginia. Well, West Virginia is kind of landlocked and doesn't have tremendous assets, I suppose, other than coal. And I'm not, putting them down. They've got mountains, so that's a good thing. As some folks say, mountain men are, as we found out in Afghanistan, are kind of hard to take out. So I think we could. I'm not a central planner, and I don't have the answer for everything. But if we have other states like Texas, say, we could have a new confederation. We don't have to share borders if we have ideology that matches. What's wrong with that? That was one of the original ideas. Trade with all, and these entangling alliances are very dangerous. So let's open up our ideas of thoughts of what other a new United States could be. We could start out with New Hampshire and Texas, and see who wants to join our United States.
I found that interesting because we were talking earlier about that, and that states may leave, and in California we're looking at that as the California leaves and becomes a nation, and you're saying, well, maybe if you leave and become a nation, you may choose to enter into an association with other free states, like the original 13 colonies. I guess like the Confederacy later on, although this wouldn't be backed by slavery. But there is this idea that if you leave, you can come back and you can form the association that you want, and it can be based upon, I guess, real federalism. And maybe there might be like-minded other independent nations at that time who would be interested in that. That's similar to what we see Canada and Japan and France and Germany doing, where they saw the NATO alliance destabilized under Trump. They are, especially after Afghanistan, not convinced that America is a stable partner under Biden. And so they're literally shopping around for new alliances. So if you look at Japan, France, Germany, England, Australia and Canada shopping for a new international Western alliance to join. They're doing that right now. They're doing it low key, but the thing is, they're talking about that, and there will be no USA in that group. It's going to be all of them without the USA, so they have a reliable partner. And they're shopping around right now because they no longer think America is a stable ally. You're not going to see that in the mainstream news, although it is being covered. Type in Japan, France, Germany, England, Australia doing alliance shopping. The French Prime Minister Macron recently talked about that, etc. So it looks like we might be looking at the same concept here in states, where the states are saying this system of government may not work, but we like the idea of alliance with like-minded countries to a degree, and maybe we need to go shopping.
Yeah, I mean, the ideas are out there. We just, I don't know, maybe what we need to do is to divorce DC. All 50 of us can say, enough of that 10 mile square, and maybe we can give them to China. They seem to be pretty well tied up themselves as it is right now. Or the United Nations, maybe, moving the United Nations out of New York City, let them go down to DC. The possibilities are endless, but the discussion is one that needs to be had.
Let's go down the rabbit hole a little bit. I think we covered a lot of the specifics of this for people, and we've gotten the information out that needs to be. Do you want this to happen? Do you want New Hampshire to actually full-blown secede?
I wouldn't be opposed to it, obviously, but I think the more important thing is to have the discussion. And then, more importantly, just let the people vote. Unfortunately, the legislature is going to possibly stand in the way and not allow that vote to go to the public. I think it's with a constitutional amendment, it's a huge barrier if you get it before the public. But I think they should have the opportunity to say yes or no. They can go ahead and say Mike Sylvia is crazy, but I suspect that it would get a fairly strong vote, and perhaps not enough to pass, but enough to scare some people. I think there was a march, medical freedom march, through the capital city of Concord around the State House over the past weekend. And this little state turned out 1,500 people. Perhaps not huge, but it's pretty big by the standards of New Hampshire for folks to give up a Saturday during leaf peeping season to get out there and be heard by those who are. And in fact, they tried to bury that story that. It was such a big turnout, but there were some other little protests about abortion and whatnot that seemed to get more of the attention. Little turnouts of a couple hundred people, and this march of 1,500 people through the streets, shutting down the city for a little bit. Kind of ignored. So you'd have to, once again, we have a controlled media that is. Filtering everything we see. This is another one of these really huge problems that we should never allow. Well, I guess I think we should not allow the government to push propaganda through these media outlets, and I'm fairly confident that that's what's going on. They get the money. In fact, for the vaccine promotion, they've gotten billions of dollars to spread that message. But the truth about simply taking vitamin D to reduce your chances.
I'm sorry.
I can't say that. We're on.
Because they are nuts out here. So
I'm sorry.
We don't talk about that at all. We'll say you have strong opinions about the regulatory framework coming from the federal government, and that you believe that your people have the right to determine for themselves, and we'll leave it there. Is that okay, brother? Is that all right?
I believe that Odyssey is a great place to get your video from.
Okay. All right. We'll leave it there. Thank you. Thank you for playing along.
I forgot where I was.
This is Wow.
Isn't this
I'm not even
interesting?
going to go down this rabbit hole because
Yeah,
there's
yeah,
just
yeah.
no winning out here.
You wanted
There's
the
no
rabbit hole,
winning
now
with
you
this
want
subject.
out.
Yeah, there's
Sorry,
no
Marcus.
winning with it's yeah, and
Hopefully you don't get a strike. You'll be right up there with Tom Woods and have to.
Every day, right?
Yeah,
You never
yeah.
know. So, one of the things that we talked about was if the people in New Hampshire vote for this, and if they do it, you were saying that you think the time is now where states would be allowed to be freed by the federal government, that you didn't see a time where the federal government was going to say, no, you can't go. We're going to march on your capital, like they did with, I think, Olympia or whatever the capital was of the Carolinas in the South. What did you mean by that? You think the time has passed for World War II style invasions and we live in more of a free association type thing, largely because our economies are so inexorably umbilical to each other?
Yeah, I don't see a big, the whole fear of the tanks rolling in. I don't see that. The way that they do things these days, and we know the three-letter agencies are always active. Color revolutions around the world, upsetting things. That's the more likely scenario if they want to be like that. But we have a population, because we are small, that is very connected. I think 60% of the residents of New Hampshire are from elsewhere in the country, or the world for that matter. So we have a lot of connections. My family is in Rhode Island. And of course, Rhode Island joined the Union under a little bit of duress. So I don't see that happening. We are very much still connected by family and custom to the rest of the people around the United States, and that's not going to change for quite some time.
One of the things that I really liked pointing out was I've heard this opinion before. The reality is that California really wanted to. It could probably just leave the United States. It'd be unconstitutional, illegal. And we're not proposing this. We're proposing using a referendum, applying for permission through Texas versus White. But here's a legal scholar saying the reality is if a state wanted to do it, they're not going to roll in the tanks. We're too well connected. We're trade too much money, interconnectivity. And, you invade something, you blow something up, like shuts down the whole economy. It terrifies people. You have mass people leaving an investment. It's just so destabilizing. They'd probably just let them go. Now, say what you will, but that comes from CNN, and specifically the legal analyst for CNN and MSNBC News. And that's in 2016 when they were talking about California. Here's the name of the article. It's called What History Says About CalExit, and it's by Danny Savalos. So we have legal scholars who are literally backing up what you say. We're just past that time. Does that seem fair to you?
Yeah, it does seem fair to me, and it seems like what's going on now, beyond the nonsense coming out of D.C., is this whole Klaus Schwab and his World Economic Forum, New World Order, if you will. It seems like they have taken the pandemic and taken all of this and gone global. And if DC and those folks want to join that kind of system, all the more reason to be on our way out, if not out. That's an even bigger problem, because it seems like, I guess I don't want to go into things that will get you in trouble. So it just seems like that has a path that is not favorable.
Yeah. So that's, again, just to back that up. So What History Says About CalExit by Danny L. Savalos is an American legal analyst for MSNBC and NBC News, multiple legal stations. And this article was printed on CNN. So you have a legal analyst for MSNBC and CNN saying on MSNBC and NBC saying on CNN, yeah, they're not going to roll tanks in. And I just find it interesting. He said it 4 years ago, and it completely backs up what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, the New Hampshire Constitution reserved to the people our rights in our Part First, Article 7. It says that only the powers that are expressly delegated to the United States will be, powers. Everything else is reserved. So
Yeah.
even before you get into the 10th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, we've already reserved those rights to ourselves. And the powers that have been expressly delegated to the United States are very few. And I'll just, one little bit from our Article 10 of our Constitution. It says, and you've heard words like this before, whenever the ends of government are perverted and public liberty manifestly endangered, and all of the means of redress are ineffectual, the people may, and of right, ought to reform the old or establish a new government. That's where we're at.
Yeah, and the American Revolution was a secession act. It was also a Civil War act. They were trying to break away and form their own government. That is secession. There were many people in America who did not want to leave. That means it's like a civil war. So yes, the American founding fathers engaged in civil war and secession. That's what it is called legally. They call it revolution, but that's not the legal understanding when you look at the framework of governments going way back. Additionally, when people are saying that what you're doing is sedition or rebellion, they may try to define those terms however they want, but they're very well defined. You're doing nothing even remotely close. We were accused of the same things here. There actually has to be a foreign enemy. They actually have to be declared an enemy, and they actually have to be in some sort of conflict where lots of Americans are getting shot and killed. And then you actually have to go give aid and comfort to that enemy while they're in the process of killing. So unless you're reaching out to Al-Qaeda and saying, hey, guys, let's work together, you're doing nothing even remotely close to what they're accusing you of, and you're completely safe. It also says something about the people who would use those terms that they wouldn't even understand. 200 years of legal history, and how when they use that phrase in that context, they seem like stupid idiots. So just wanted to put that in there. You don't have to comment. You can look it up. Them saying that is ridiculous. It's like going, well, I'm going to call you a bear. And I defined a bear as something that's 20 feet tall with spots and yellow fur and lives only in the plains of Africa. That's a giraffe. No, it's a bear because I defined it that way. No, that's not the way the law works.
No, I think what we're doing is much more like the Second American Revolution, which happened when we disposed of the Articles of Confederation and formed the U.S. Constitution. That was a peaceful transfer of power into a new form of government. Some people can disagree with that, but that's what happened. It was a revolution. A new government was formed from an old government. And, the first one didn't last all that long, but we're just looking at forming a new government, and it will be an independent New Hampshire.
Last question. National divorce. 2016, California was talking about seceding. It was all over the news. Biden gets elected the beginning of 2020. Texas talks about seceding. 3 months ago, there's a poll showing that the plan for unity and national cohesion has completely failed, and people on both the left and right are talking about secession. Then entertainers and many conservatives start talking about national divorce. It's trending at this moment. And then we have another poll showing there's still continued support for secession. So we have a state making news a few years ago saying they want to secede, then another state making news saying they want to secede. And then after we're told that America's going to come together and it's all good, that's not happening. And we have multiple polls going, no, there's a lot of interest still in secession. Is national divorce a flash in the pan, or is it a sign of where we're going? Your opinion?
I think it's the latter. We seem to be on our way to that divorce, and hopefully a peaceful one, and hopefully it will be prosperous for everybody involved. We are definitely due. There's I think at this point it is building. It is not going to just go away. There needs to be some kind of resolution, not revolution, but a resolution to this where we can agree to disagree and move on.
And if we don't pursue peaceful divorce, things get better on their own. People just calm down, even though they haven't. What happens?
Well, I don't know. There's somewhere near 30 trillion problems out there, and that's the big one. There is an economic wave cresting, and it's not a pretty one. That's probably the one that's most damaging, and the reason the World Economic Forum has great ideas for a reset for us.
I think it was the hip hop star Jay-Z who said, "I got 99 problems, but national divorce isn't one." Maybe he was wrong. Last minute comments, Mike. We're going to let you go. Post this up to our network here. Share it with you. Anybody else who's pursuing secession or wants to talk about it and is a reasonable human being who believes in using the constructs that are provided in a safe manner, please reach out to us. Yes, California is dedicated to getting the news out that the mainstream simply won't cover. Mike Silva, last minute comments. Anything you'd like people to know? Perhaps websites to check you out, ways to contact you, sir?
Hey, pleasure to be with you, Marcus. A really good conversation, and enjoy it. I think we need to have a lot of thought to put into this. There's a lot to do, a long way to go. It's not going to be easy, but I think we can do it, and we can do it peacefully. And if anybody needs to find me, it's MikeSylvia.org, and you can find out all kinds of things there, and Google me if you need to. You'll get all kinds of other stuff. It's all out there. I'm just as straight a shooter as possible.
I really appreciate it. I'm sure the communication will keep going. We're going to end it there. I'm going to send you a copy of the video. So we're about 1 hour for the interview. That's good. That should keep the view count up high. So thank you, Mike, for being here. And I will send you a copy very soon, sir.
Pleasure. Nice talking with you, Marcus.
Yeah. What up?
Take care.